Good morning to all. Today we are going to see the topic client server architecture. So first we need to know the meaning of what is client and what is server. So client is nothing but a system which will send requests to the server. So request in the sense we need some information, either it can be a data or it can be a file. It should be a request. So the client will send request and the server will receive the request from the client, and server will contain all the data needed by the client. So the server will search for the appropriate request and will send the request back to the client. So this is simple definition of client server. So client will run a set of programs which will send request to the server, and server will search for the necessary resource and will again send response to the client. A simple example for client server architecture is, for consider the ATM machine. So this ATM will act as a client. The bank which we are having the account will act as a server. So in ATM we are inserting our ATM machine and we are require some amount of money. So this request will send to the server, that is the bank. In bank we are having the money which we have deposited. So the amount which we have entered in that ATM machine will be validated by the bank, that is server. And if the necessary amount is available in our account, then the amount which we have required will be given back by the ATM machine as a response. So this is a simple day-to-day example for client server architecture. So this ATM machine will act as a client, and the bank which we are having the account will act as a server. So in this client server architecture we are having different types. So we are going to see each one in detail. So first one is two-tier model. So this two-tier model will have simply the client and server. So the two parts we are having, one is client, another one is server. So we will say that client tier and server tier. So this client will have the programs to send a request, and the server will have the data and set of programs to send the response to the client. So simple example for this two-tier architecture is web server. So in web server we will have all the web pages. So this client will send requests to retrieve a particular web page. The web server will locate the particular web page and send that web page as a response to the client. So in two-tier model we are having only two components, one is client and another one is server. So this is a diagram for client server model, two-tier architecture. So this client, we may have more than one client, and both the client will communicate to the server. So what are the advantage and disadvantage of this two-tier in the sense? So it is very simple architecture, only we are having two components, so it is easy for designing and implementation. It is very easy and provide the fast access. Only the thing disadvantages, suppose if we are increasing the number of clients, the server may not have the proper data storage to accommodate all the clients. So if you are increasing the client, and this will be difficult by the server to give immediate response. So that is a disadvantage. Even though it is very simple to design, if you are increasing the client, number of clients, then the server will respond slowly. So that is the main disadvantage of two-tier architecture. The next one is three-tier model. So in the three-tier model, we are having three layers. So what are the layers means? Client, application and data layer. So the client layer, that is the layer which will send the request to the server. So this client layer will have a GUI interface, that is graphical user interface. graphical user interface in the sense when we are sending our request, we need to use some buttons and combo box. So with the help of GUI environment, we can able to send a request. So that layer is considered as a client layer. And the next layer is application layer. So this application layer will act as a interface between the data layer and the client layer. So the application layer will have the programs to interface, that is the client need to get the data from the data layer. So the interface will be provided by the application layer. In the data layer, third layer is data layer. So it is having a actual data. So we can consider as a database, some of the database that will be considered as a data layer. So we are having three layers. First one is client layer, application, second one application layer, third one data layer. So in a reverse order, if you want to say that, in data layer we will have the data that is stored by the server. So data layer will provide the necessary data, and the client layer will provide the request to access the data from the data layer. And intermediate, we are having that application layer, which will act as an interface between the data layer and the client layer. So in the client layer, we are having the graphical user interface. In application layer, we are having the program to retrieve the data. In data layer, we are having the data actually stored. So for a simple example, we can say that we are having a student database. So that will be stored in a data layer. So my request is, I want to retrieve the students, those who are belonging to the Tamil department. So my request is retrieving of students' data, those who are belonging to a Tamil department. So this request will be sent by the client layer, and the data is available in the data layer. Student database will be stored in a data layer, and in between I need to write a code to get the data of Tamil major students. So that will be done by the application layer. So we are giving the request in the client layer, and the data will be stored actually in a data layer. Intermediate, we are having the application layer. So this application layer provides an interface which will receive the request from the client layer and contact the data layer and retrieve the corresponding data, again send back to the client layer. So the below diagram, they have given clear explanation about the three-tier architecture. So here we are having the client as a systems, and database server will be available, and intermediate we are having application tier. So this client will send a request to the application layer, and this application layer will retrieve the data from database server, again send back to the client. So this is the three-tier architecture. So what is the main advantage of three-tier client server architecture means? So here we can include any number of client. Okay, so it will provide a fast performance comparing to two-tier architecture, and we can increase some client or we can reduce. So both increasing and decreasing number of clients will not affect the performance of the architecture. And we can also provide the data security. Comparing to this two-tier architecture, this three-tier architecture is provide a better security. And these two are the main advantage. The disadvantage of this three-tier architecture is it's quite complex because we are having three layers. So while implementing these three layers, comparing to two-tier, it is very difficult to implement. So this is the advantage and disadvantage. And coming to entire model, So 2-tier, we know that we are having client and server. In 3-tier, we are having client, data and application layer. So in n-tier, we are having any number of layers. So it can be 2-tier, 3-tier or 4-tier or etc. So usually this will be called as multi-tier architecture. So we are having n-tier application program. So in entire architecture, we are having, basically we will have 3 layers. First one is logic tier, presentation tier and the data tier. So the logic tier represent how we are going to retrieve the data. So that is called as logic tier. What program we are going to write to retrieve the data. So that will be given by the logic tier. And second one is presentation tier. In this presentation tier, we will have that user interface. Already we have I told that. So using buttons, a text box. So using this graphical user interface, we are going to receive the request and this presentation layer will display the output. Through the logic tier, we are retrieving the data, and the presentation tier, we are going to present the data. So for example, the presentation tier, if you want to present data as a chart or data as a graph. So how we are going to, in table we want to show the data. So how we are going to present the data to the user, that will be decided by the presentation tier. And third one, the data tier. So this data tier will have the data which we have stored in a database server. So usually this entire model will have 3 tiers: logic tier, presentation tier and the data tier. So logic tier will have the logic, what program we are going to write, that is logic tier. Presentation tier, how we are going to present our data. And the third one is data tier, so which will have the database server. Thank you, girls.